Welcome. I'm Liz Taylor, ocean explorer, naturalist, and entrepreneur.
I'm Sylvia Earle, National Geographic explorer in residence, founder of Mission Blue, and an ocean elder.
This is our show, Dive In, where we host informal and open conversations with the ocean community on topics of wonder and interest. Later on in the program, you'll be able to ask questions. You can just put them into the chat, or the Q&A box. Put them in the Q&A box, the questions. And then we will get through as many of them as possible at the end. And in the chat, Gigi will post some interesting links for you to refer to along the way. Today, we are going to be joined by our friend, first we have to say, what is it? Yes, we're going to be joined by our friend, Tim Taylor. And as soon as I get to
that beautiful image.
This beautiful image here.
Yes.
And
that iconic one, the best picture ever taken, I think many agree, was a turning point in our history.
Yeah, we just have to figure out where
ourselves
is our slideshow.
There we go. Boom.
Wonders of technology.
Yeah. Remember what?
The world is blue.
The world is
blue. Yes, so we are being joined today by Tim Taylor, founder and president of Tiburon Subsea. Welcome, Tim. You can dive back in with your video.
Oh, there he is.
There you are. Tim's a longtime family friend, collaborator, and noted ocean explorer. For many years, he's been supporting science in expeditionary diving operations throughout the Florida Keys, Cuba, the Gulf of Mexico, the Faroe Islands, the Bahamas.
The world.
Yeah, now he's branched
the blue
out.
World.
Wherever it's blue. And just like our family, his has grown up around the water, in the water.
Under the water.
Under the water.
So who's that big fellow with you?
Yeah, we our little shark stuff out there. We did a lot of work in the Bahamas with Sonny Gruber, Wes Pratt, and years ago. So we even Jeannie Clark was a good friend, and we did some work with her on some of this stuff. So
I used to be advised that we should be afraid when we see sharks in the water, but now I'm afraid because I don't see sharks in the water.
Yeah. I remember some commercial jobs we had, and we were coming through the Bahamas, and we stopped, and all my crew are divers, and they're all jumping in the water with these sharks because they're in the water and they're swimming with them. And a couple of British engineers on board were like freaking out. It's like we're running the opposite way.
I had that happen to me in Hawaii, where I jumped into to swim with some sharks that were nearby, and the captain of the boat ran down below, and he came back with a shotgun, and I was nervous he's going to start firing.
But Stan Waterman, good friend and underwater photographer, said that the best defense against a shark is to go out with a camera, hoping to take pictures of sharks, and they will simply disappear.
I can attest to that. So
this one did not disappear.
No, this
is beautiful stuff. This is one of my good friends, Walt Stearns, an amazing photographer, took this with me. I don't have a lot of images of myself, but
taking pictures of
couple of these. Yeah, this is real pretty oceanic white tip, and then we're 1,500 feet of water below us of nothing. So it's you're kind of
water diving. It's
it's
awesome.
pretty,
yeah.
There are only about 1% of these oceanic white tips left since the time that I first took the plunge.
Yeah.
When they were really abundant. They were
unfortunately
abundant sharks in the sea. Now they're the least abundant.
Yeah. They're such beautiful fish.
They are gorgeous. High seas travelers like you.
Yes. And this is our humble little expedition research exploration vessel that so many years we've worked with you on projects and rendezvoused with you in the Tortugas in the Bahamas and things of that nature. So it was designed as a dive vessel, as Coast Guard certified, pretty custom. We wound up actually running autonomous vehicle projects off it before I sold it to the Navy. So now the Navy takes it and tests equipment with it in Narragansett Bay. So
what I remember best about the Tiburon vessel, Tim, was in the Tortugas.
During Sustainable Seas.
Yeah, during the Sustainable Seas expeditions. And your kids were young, and they're sliding down that place that's just under the windows.
Yeah.
They were just using it like a slide.
That was unusual. The boat has a big prow in the front, and you can see it in the pictures there.
Yeah,
They'd climb all the way up the windows and water slide down.
they were
So,
both under 10, but they scampered around that boat. They were the best. They had sea legs you wouldn't believe.
but just like Liz, they grew up in the water, so that
Yeah.
it was second nature to them. So
Yeah, it was great.
We just had such a great time all during the Sustainable Seas expeditions all out there at the Dry Tortugas and spending so much time really seeing what's below the surface of this area that's designated as
It's
a
a
sanctuary,
National park.
national park.
And
yeah,
sanctuary.
I mean, Tortugas is an amazing, and people if they don't know what it is, and we don't have to get too far into this, but it's 70 miles west of Key West in the Gulf of Mexico. And there's an amazing ecosystem with more living coral than most of the other reefs, and isolated, but it goes out to Riley's Hump and 1,500 feet deep in shallow Sherwood Forest, which is where we kind of did a lot of our diving back in then. So that's one of the reefs I discovered and showed the scientists, and it was amazing, amazing coral cover that no one really knew existed until the turn of the century. So
Right.
People are more familiar with Fort Jefferson and the fact that the doctor who
Mud, yes.
Dr. Mudd, yeah.
Yeah, it's strange to see a Civil War fort 70 miles in the middle ocean with a couple of sandy islands around it. So,
I know it's really, you don't expect it there at all. And
but the real treasure is underwater. The real history.
Exactly.
That's right.
Yeah.
The excitement is truly there.
yeah, you just can imagine this, even snorkeling around there and diving, of course, it's just outstanding. And then to be able to take the submersibles down there
Right.
in that region to get below where you can normally dive. And then you with your, rebreathers and mixed gas diving.
It's really like being anchored in the middle of the ocean, which it kind of is.
It is.
It is.
And
On a ship.
And it's some amazing, unique life that's out there that you would not expect from. It's a major flyway for birds. Is the only masked booby rookery out there. There's some amazing things that just seasonally come through and back and forth in there, and that's with fish as well. So it's a whole ecosystem that is United States in the water that few people know about. Few people get to see.
Right on.
And you had the really interesting, it was great that you were available to help during Sustainable Seas, because there were so many things that we weren't allowed to do off of a NOAA vessel that you just come cruising through and you jump on board and away you go and do the things.
I always used to, for those sci-fi fans, which I always used to say I was like the Millennium Falcon. I'm a civilian. I can do the things that aren't necessarily sanctioned by science yet. Rebreathers being one of them, deep diving, mixed gas, all that took a while for it to be accepted as operating procedures within NOAA and everything else. But my team and our support vessel would come in and fight the fight, and then we had to take off to pay Jabba once in a while. So there we go.
But during one of those dives, you had the kids on board, and Sylvia had just come back from one of the dives of the Deep Worker, and she saw the ocean sunfish, the mola mola.
Yeah, that was
right?
fun.
There's a stuffed version.
It's upside down.
Mola molas, you tell them how big those are. That's a nice stuffed animal, but these things are a couple of 1,000 pounds. They're huge, right? So,
Bigger than these turtles by a lot.
Yeah, just enormous fish. It's just like and the tail's just like, it's just like a swimming head, right?
Yeah, the eyeballs are like this. They're almost like a whale's eye. But we were picking you up off a boat and jumping on board, and my son was 4, I think, and he'd cross-referenced every book on our boat, every fish book. Couldn't read, but he could tell you what every fish was. And you were relating the story of seeing this mola mola at 1,500 feet, and he's like hanging on to my leg while I'm steering the boat. And his first question was, "What species? Was it a shark tail or was it And it was kind of funny. So that's how you bring kids up and make them care about the ocean. You get them involved at an early age. So.
And then you've been working with some of the the other technology to help us learn more about the fish that we aren't, when we can't be there to see them directly.
This is Critter Cam, isn't this Critter Cam?
It's Greg Marshall stuff. I've done a lot of National Geographic projects and Sustainable Seas with you, Criticam. We had a National Science Foundation grant, or Greg Marshall did, and we were his team. He's hired my boat as a platform, and we basically went out and we, for 3 seasons, tried to shrink the cameras and deploy them on sharks. And now this is way before GoPro. This is way before, everybody's doing this with tiny cameras that are commercial. But these go deep, they pop off, they have iridium, they have radio.
Pioneering work. I remember the first
Yeah.
of these critter cams.
And so it was some pretty cool work, and we only lost one. but,
Yeah, 'cause these-
but
they're designed to come off the animal and then just surface again on their own, right?
yeah, yes. And I remember our first year, it was summer. So, my kids are off of school, and we decided to take the kids. We wanted to put them out on the trip, take them. It's a 3-week expedition that we're refining this gear. And we negotiated a price with Nat Geo. We gave them a break on it if I could take the kids for part of the trip. And they didn't really know how that would work out, but we acquiesced in the end and agreed. And the next 2 years, they're asking me to include them. They want them on board. This is cool. We get to, kids and show them what's going on. And
That's great.
Yeah. So it was neat. So
It's really wonderful.
Yeah. This is a lot of the work out there in the towers. Yeah. So these guys this is still an ongoing project in the Dry Tortugas. Some 20-something years later, my friend Wes Pratt is out there, I think right now, setting up these towers, and they tag sharks, they DNA sample them. This is the only place that they can actually watch and monitor sharks mating. So they come in the shallow water, they mate. Wes will trump out there, catch these sharks while they're mating in nets.
Oh, that doesn't seem fair.
It doesn't seem fair, but they go right back. They 30 minutes later, it doesn't bother their behavior, but it's not changing their behavior with bait like you do with most shark studies. It's a real organic, true behavioral study, and he's got amazing data on this. It's a fascinating long-term study, and he's learning a lot from this species about how all other sharks do it. So we were proud to be 10 years, I think, on this project. So
That's great.
Yeah,
Those long-term projects are priceless.
they really are. You can get just so
and
much.
rare.
Yeah, and just recording data over a period of time, and then using a variety of platforms like this. You've got the tower, the kayaks, the little rip boats and things. So it's
the kids in the tower watching. So yeah.
Then here's the sampling techniques.
Yes.
Huh?
Yeah, we're taking blood, DNA sampling, different pit tags under the skin, regular tags, and it's great. It's some amazing work, and Wes is again still at it. So
This is my idea of proper catch and release.
yes, yeah, agreed.
No harm is done.
Yeah.
It might be, tweak their psyche a little bit for a few minutes, but beyond that, you really gain information that would be hard to get otherwise.
And it can really be used to help them in the long run.
Even though they may not appreciate it at the
No,
time.
they probably don't.
And speaking of crazies, when people out there saw you jump into the water with a big net to go catch a shark, they thought you were a little loony.
Here's the kind of that combination of the Tiburon and then the government vessel there that has a little sub on board. This looks like it was probably out there at Pulley's Ridge, it's probably the deepest coral reef in the continental United States.
Yes.
This was an example of, we had the government, which was NOAA, but we also had US Geological Survey and industry. We had universities. It was a public-private partnership that really set the tone at National Geographic. It was the first such project with 5-year sustainable seas expeditions. And it was so great when you were able to come along with your tech divers to accompany both the ROV and the submersible and explore down to see this sunken, it's actually an old shoreline.
Right.
And it's a continuation of the Tortugas coral reef. If you look at as if the ocean were drained away, you could see that it's like an arc.
Yes.
About 200 miles west of Fort Myers.
It's another example of us being able to do diving that NOAA at that time couldn't do at those depths.
way.
Yeah.
In fact, and I want to, you go back a picture. the Jim Coulter from Moat Marine Lab. This is a Moat Marine Lab team. Jim put all that together. I was fortunate enough to have Billy Causey, of the head of the Marine Sanctuary, come in and say, listen, we can't do this off of our boats. Can you put this together? So
Would you mind?
yeah, we made that happen, and Billy followed everybody. There was 4 boats here. Billy and his team followed us on one of their boats. There was another ROV boat off doing their ROV thing, and then we were in conjunction with you and the deep worker and the Suncoaster, yeah. So it was some pretty cool stuff. We logged a lot of bottom time, working divers together with the submersible at depth, and
I love
yeah,
that.
it's one of those places. If you close your eyes and you open your eyes, if you put me there and open your eyes, and these pictures, you'll see a little
Yeah,
bit.
here you guys are. You've got that combination. This is like the ranges in depth from around 200 all the way down to about 400 feet, right?
Yes.
Oh, it's right at the edge of where divers can go and could not go safely for any time at all on air, but you were using mixed gas.
Using mixed gas, some open circuit and some rebreathe. This was kind of on the cusp when we were segueing out of open circuit into most of the divers doing rebreathe, and we were on rebreathers.
With more compressions.
The neat thing here is that we were able to sample and pull samples that as divers and get the kind of bottom time over the course of 5 days that with these deep mixed gas that was impactful. We did a lot of time in the water. So.
And those corals
are so beautiful, and it was so fortunate you were able to have the tech divers there, because a lot of this reef actually was being impacted by derelict fishing gear.
Yes,
you had some of the long lines and things that would just kind of like saw through the coral over time.
Fish traps.
But with the dexterity that you have just with the human hand diving, you're able to wind up a lot of that stuff and get it out of there, and even like tuck it into the submersible's basket, or so you can get a lot of it out. Great.
Here's a unique thing about Pulley Ridge and Sherwood Forest, the one I discovered earlier, and we've dove on together. It's a Tortugas, and this is a little farther out, is that when you run your bottom machines and your sonar, you don't see them. Usually you don't see reef formation. You don't see the relief that you'd find on sonar. And even if you were running side scan sonar, you wouldn't see a lot of relief. This is because there's only like 1% of the light on the surface. All this coral spreads out and forms a carpet. And so it's the same types of coral, in shallower water, but healthier, but spread out real thin. And who knows? I mean, I know someone knows, but they say it took a lot longer for this to grow, and it's a lot more delicate of an ecosystem. So
yeah, if I go back one, you can just see how thin, and there's just like beautiful
very
dishes,
fragile,
like chihulies.
Yeah. And the algae that we pulled up, you were fascinated with that at the time, and it's such a large.
This only grows in deep water. It doesn't like too much sun. It's adapted for that 1%.
And what is its name?
Beautiful name, Anadiomene. Anadiomene menzii, after a scientist whose last name is Menzies. But Anadiomene sounds like a goddess, a Greek goddess.
A green goddess.
A green. Oh, but I love this field of Anadiomene. I first became acquainted with it in 1965 during an expedition where we only had access to a little box dredge off a scientific research vessel. We dragged it along and came loaded this whole basket full of Anadiomene menzii. It was the first time it had been seen in about 100 years.
Wow.
And because it was first reported in the Gulf of Mexico with somebody else who dragged a net way back when. Now we don't have to drag nets. I hate nets that just destroy the seafloor.
Well, and you have no idea that this is how it actually looks.
No idea.
You just see the chunk of beautiful green algae,
or who lives there. You could see the various fish and other species, the little guys that make up the greatest diversity of life.
Yeah, I remember when we were out there, I actually filmed. This was still camera that we shot, but I did some filming, and we found what were they? The crinoids that were swimming through the water, and it's just an amazing, delicate life down there. That is, if once you got down there as a diver and you settled in, and even I hate to say, even closer because we could get there than the submarine and submersible deep worker. We could see all the minute ecosystem and life right in tight with all these small coral formations. And I say small, but they blanketed for miles. So it was a big ecosystem. It still is. So.
Well, the work that you guys did out there really helped to pave the way for protection for it, because it was kind of forgotten about, and then it was an area that was fairly heavily fished, hence the derelict gear. But it helped to build the case for protection for it.
It's still not fully protected, but we're getting the data, and without the information, we could not make the case.
Yeah.
Anna Diamond, you're so beautiful.
You're stuck on this word all night now.
And a long decompression stop with a camera and battery power left. So.
Oh yeah.
That was the advantage I had in the submarine, because I could sit for hours in one place and really use the camera as my.
I remember this dive vividly, because when they dropped us as a team, we were like skydivers jumping out of a plane, and if we don't get out all together, we get spread out, and we were kind of spread out in a line. And I was first in the water with a camera and my lights, and you were down there at the bottom, and where we're trying to hit you, but the current was taking us away, and I was swimming. The guys were behind me and in line, and I just threw my video lights on and shined them at you, and you shined them at us, and it was like, oh, there we are. And you got on the pedal and just drove to us, because we couldn't make way.
Never come that current now.
we were hanging, maybe making a little way, but it was this kind of signal by light in World War II.
Here I am.
Morse code.
We all got together, and it was in my memory, it was one of those amazing dives. Here we are 220 feet down on this amazing coral reef, a bunch of professional divers and Sylvia Earle on a submersible, and we're chugging along, and these images are priceless to me. So
yeah, really wonderful. There, more of it. It's a bryozoan on the left. Not a coral, not a plant, not a piece of trash. Looks like it might be.
These were all scattered through. It was beautiful.
Yeah, gorgeous, beautiful things. Just so diverse. It is, it's low relief, but really diverse when you get to really get in there and look at all the small creatures. And it's a system that's been around for a while, relatively undisturbed until we came along in the last few decades.
The whole water column above us, though, was alive. There were and all sorts of permit and things that. So this was, even though the reef below is the base for a whole nother ecosystem that goes above it. So
that's one of the things we often talk about here, is the three-dimensionality of life in the ocean, that a lot of people just don't really think about it. They want to get to bottom,
The
right.
Is that part in between,
the juicy part, as you say. Yeah.
Has anybody ever done the math on how much how deep the things live on the ground, and equated it to how much mass the ocean is, and how much more volume? They say it's 70% blue and of water, but if you did the mass and where things could live, it's probably more like 95% of the planet habitable space is
maybe
underwater.
as much as 97%.
Yeah. And prior to selfies, this is before selfies, you throw your camera at your dive buddy and make them
That's a great one too.
Yeah.
She's smiling because she has no decompression time.
Yeah, I'm smiling too. You can't see it.
Yeah, it's just like now with the mask, you have to smile with your eyes. Yes.
Yeah. That's a rebreather, and I love this shot because I'm in that rebreather sitting on the sub at 220, and this is Tektite. This is Sylvia. This is you when you started, or we were in Tektite, and you were diving rebreathers back then. It took that long.
70. Yeah.
And when I was diving that, they still hadn't caught on for mainstream operations for research and exploration with NOAA or university or that type of thing. So, I mean, it takes a while. And then when the tech changes, or when it gets to that point, these things are now such a useful tool for divers.
I thought everybody would have them within 10 years.
Yeah.
And now it's
and they still are very few and far between, and they still do require a fair amount of savvy and training and maintenance. That
they're not recreational, but they take some discipline, and it's like flying a plane. Okay,
Right.
you got to get a license and maintain it, and you got to keep your skill levels up. But they bring so much to the table with no noise. I mean, we can stay down for 4 hours without, the gas longevity of staying at depth, and even if you're using them in shallow water.
Yeah.
We used to support a fish counting project with the University of Miami and the Tortugas, and when these came along, we used to make fun of the fish counters and said, "You're only counting the deaf fish because because when you get in the water with your scuba, everybody leaves and the deaf fish stay, and you get to count them. When you leave, all our fish come out, and we get to see them." So
Yeah. And the same, when we had Richard Pyle and his son Owen on a few episodes ago, he was talking about the use of the rebreathers in Hawaii and how he can find, like a dozen species an hour.
Yeah.
New species, diving on some of those deep reefs. So there's just an incredible amount of work to be done.
It's a great unknown. I mean,
and it's an amazing tool. I think all research divers, if they are diving enough and can commit the time to being to discipline to learn and maintain these things, they should use them. So
But this is another one of the tools that you have been using for some of your work. This is the ROV Otis. So you named him after Otis Barton, right?
Yeah, so Otis Barton, I got his book right here.
Yeah.
with William Beebe.
And Liz, you guys built them for us. So
Yes, we did. This is one we built at DOER, but it just shows kind of the variety of platforms that can be used for the ocean exploration.
Yeah, if you have to stay dry,
yeah,
sitting on the boat, you can do that. you can send the robots, and they are great complements to diving.
Yes,
yeah, it can go even much deeper than the rebreathers, and often the ROVs, especially a big one like this, can go even deeper than
we're
most
4,500 meters here, I think.
Yeah.
So,
but you've really been branching now into the autonomous underwater vehicles, the AUV, as they're typically, more commonly called, and using these, these kind of torpedo-shaped vehicles that are used for mapping and imaging in ways that are really changing the way that we understand the ocean.
Yeah, this is the future. I mean, it's a tool in the bag. All right, so this is we took the Tiburon before I sold it to the Navy, and we had a project where we actually helped develop this bluefin AUV. They hadn't built one that could last as long or go as deep. So this is about a 1,500 meter system, and we mapped, I want to say 6,300 square nautical miles, kilometers, excuse me. So it was a 3-year project off the Blake Plateau off of Florida. And it was amazing. We learned so much with these autonomous vehicles. We saw a future there, and we kind of pivoted to that, and we're doing a lot of work with these things now. But AUVs they're not the end all. I mean, manned submersibles, ROVs, divers,
We need them all.
but they are changing the way we can collect data on the ocean, and with so much less impact and so much less costs and so much more quality. And you mentioned payloads. The payloads are it's like they're like apps for a phone. If
That's right.
The vehicles are there. There are a lot of savvy scientists and people that have questions they want to ask, and they can design a payload for these things that can go answer those questions. And besides the mapping, which is extremely important.
Right. Well, the mapping is so nice because then it allows us to kind of target things that look interesting. If you're just kind of plinking along with the sub or the ROV, you might kind of come across something. But if you can use a tool like this to really kind of mow the lawn, if you will, to go back and forth and create a detailed map of an area, then you have
and deploy dozens of them, hundreds of them.
Yes.
Really.
Yeah.
When I was the chief scientist at NOAA in 1990, it was estimated, using the technology that we had available to us, side scan and sonar and other techniques for mapping the ocean, we figured it would take 150 years.
Right.
And without the kind of detail that is now possible with the new sonars and with these new AUVs. And the dream now is in maybe the next 10 years.
Right.
Employing these new technologies, and institutions around the world are really pulling together to really get a decent map of the ocean, of the Earth.
Yeah.
of the earth.
There's a lot of data out there, but it's all in, corporate hard
Disparate.
drives. And,
Yeah.
so the sharing of that knowledge I want to, it's a joint effort or a global effort to aggregate it. And that's what's going on with the Nippon project. But advancing that technology is another thing. These machines, that the picture you're looking at now,
Yep.
that wreck there is the USS Grayback we discovered off Okinawa in 2019.
So can you explain to our listeners, viewers, where the wreck is? Where it's right here.
Right out, yeah. Right, I don't know if you can point to the little numbers up there. It's a waypoint number that we tagged on it, but
Yeah.
it's a little shadowy area with a high point on it. You can see it.
Right. So that shows you that kind of, so this is what the map or the sonar would typically show us. And so we're looking for things that are they look kind of out of place, an anomaly.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it's a big ocean, and people don't realize there's a lot of commercial work going on in the oceans. It's I want to call it the Wild Wild West, but there are mining and hydrocarbons and everything, and that's industry, that's human. But the question has to be asked: what's there, and what are we plowing over before to build stuff? And that's biological, and that's historical. This is a tomb of 80 people in here. It'd be ashamed if they trenched through it not knowing it, or through a living coral reef like Cordell Banks or Oculina Banks off of Florida, or
Pulleys Ridge.
Pulleys Ridge. Correct.
What is this?
So
this is the same wreck on a multi-beam sonar, a three-dimensional multi-beam sonar, and that's called the USS Grayback, and it was bombed off of Okinawa in 1943. You can see the big hole in the aft section there. It looks a little green. That's a plane dropped a bomb on it from outside of I think Okinawa, launched out of Okinawa. But our research and everybody, the historical documents had this 100 miles from where we found it, and we were able to redo the research and retranslate it, and found error in the numbers, and it's helped us narrow it down to find this. So
this is really leading into we're going to talk about your Lost 52 project, which is where you've been using this primarily AUVs, but then in some cases going back with ROVs to look for and find and document the 52 US Navy submarines that that had just vanished during World War II. And it's such important work. It really helps to bring families closure, to help us understand where these wrecks are. They're also biologically important, as you pointed out, because we know exactly when they were lost. And so we can look at the wrecks and get some idea about growth on them over time.
Community structures.
But the Navy has been incredibly grateful to you for this body of work. And in fact, so much so that they recognized you recently with this Distinguished Public Service Medal just last month.
Yes.
I haven't seen it, Tim.
There's my little pin here.
I would wear it in the shower if I were you. I'd wear it all the time.
That's beautiful. That's the highest award that the Navy can bestow on a civilian.
Hey, I love it. Beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
Yay.
And well deserved.
It's kind of the least they could do to say, recognize this amazing effort.
It's nice to get the recognition, but it's more important to get the word out there, and this helps. This helps it. And we get a lot of families that contact us. We keep a database. We keep a mailing list. It's a Herculean effort. The story of the World War II submariners is an amazing, heroic. I mean, I consider them precursors to astronauts. They got in these things never before in the history of our planet where people get in these and go to another environment and have to live there for weeks at a time. And unfortunately, it was war that spurred a lot of the technology along. But all the things we use today, the sonar, the underwater submersibles that you build, these guys were kind of forcibly developing that technology in war.
Yeah, here you are in the control van of the ROV room, so you can see all the multiple screens that have the video and sonar images coming up.
But the submariners didn't never got the recognition.
No,
You still don't.
no.
You make the parallel with the
There's a lot of reason for that, because they were secret. They were so effective during the war. They did so much in helping win the war effort in the Pacific that it kept them secret, their accomplishments, till the 70s, because they were still doing things. They're still Cold War time.
a lot of it is still secret, I gather. But John Craven, I'm sure he's our hero collectively,
Yeah.
wrote a book about just the disparity, how really important these heroes were, going into the unknown and developing the technologies, exploring. And I think it is going to increasingly be recognized, and you're certainly achieving recognition now of what went into the development that made it possible to go underwater, stay underwater, explore, even though it did not make headlines at the time.
No. And I have some kindred spirit, having the research vessel for close to 20 years and working on expeditions. You guys have been on expeditions all over. If it breaks, you have to usually fix it there. So you have to carry it. Your team are cross-trained. Everybody, it pitches in at every level to get it done. And that's what submariners were. They trained on everything. They knew every bolt in their boat. And they to get home, they had to make sure it was fixed. And
Apollo 13.
Yeah, definitely.
That's ocean exploration. But the things they were doing underwater and the ground they were breaking, I find it was an amazing time, all while being shot at and trying to be killed. So it's
Yeah.
So
I think this next one is a little video.
Yes. And this is some of the technology we're developing with some friends in Aberdeen, where it's photogrammetry, and everybody's seen photogrammetry on the surface, but we call it 4D modeling, because the image you saw earlier of the multi-beam sonar, the colorful submarine picture, that's 3D modeling as well. It's multi-beam. This is a real picture. The fourth dimension is color. And this technology is extremely underdeveloped because of television, because of Drain the Oceans and shows like that have graphic artists developing some amazing artwork of underwater submarines or wrecks or coral reefs or fish life. And people don't, that line is crossed. The artists and graphic design is so good now that line has blurred reality for people, and they think it already exists. This technology doesn't. This is millions of points taken off of our video and still images and assembled with our navigation equipment and other sources of 3D XYZ data that we pull from our equipment, and we build an image. And it's, as you can see, we can explore it, move it around, tip it upside down, measure archaeologically. So in theory, well, not in theory, in practice, we can go out there, spend a day or two on one of these sites, fully map it, process this, and then archaeologists can study it at home and or forever. Okay, they can measure this to that, and they can zoom in on the artifact, the video that we shot, or the stills we shot. They can back them up. They can go to it. But this never, as a diver, do you get to see the whole
No way.
You're always just looking at slices that your light can give you, and visibility will give you. Now you can take a reef that's a mile long and scan it, and then back in the lab, you can virtually dive it. Our next hope is to turn this into augmented or virtual reality type experience where people can, this is the S-28. This has 49 men entombed on it. Families can see it. And right now, the best for us is for people to experience this is to post it up on YouTube and our website. But
right. But it really does help, I think, help the families where they've lost a loved one. They had no idea whatever happened to them.
This is real important.
But it really does help to bring some closure, and again, to kind of watch the knowing that this is an actual, not just kind of a conceptual image, but the actual image of it.
Yeah, the real
Yes,
deal.
yes. And that's the buy-in. People have to understand that. And that's what we keep preaching. This is real. This is a real picture of the wreck.
Not an artist's interpretation.
Right.
Correct. And you're right. The families are the important thing. This is all about people and letting them see this. And we have a lot of people ask us where we're going next, where we're looking, how we're looking for that. And we keep that private because often we'll go out underway with 6 to 7 targets a year on an expedition. And 1 year, 4 or 5 typhoons we had to run from. So we spent a lot more time looking for one than we could get to the others, and we didn't get to the ones we wanted to. So we plan enough that we have options when the weather hits us, but we're mobile. We can run 1,500 miles to another site and work it if we have to. But
and to your point, oftentimes they aren't exactly where you think you're going to find them. And so a lot of it is really doing the detailed research, the archival studying, and the poring over the maps and getting the information from, even from local fishermen. Maybe their nets got hung up in a certain spot a lot,
We're going back to the source in Japan, because when submarines went underway, it was secret. And they were often 2 weeks late. They were deemed missing. They hadn't heard from them. So somewhere in 2 weeks they were lost somewhere in the area where they were supposed to be. But it's really the captain. It's really the captain's discretion. He's out there hunting, ships to sink, and so he could have gone anywhere chasing anybody. So we rely on reports from the Japanese side that said we attacked a sub. We might have attacked a sub. We saw an oil slick here. We bombed it. We've done a lot of searches where we've run things to ground and proved that it's not the case. But that's the nature of this. You got to spend the time, put the time in, and do the searches, do the scans, and
Real detectives.
in time. And so, but at the same time, we're mapping a tremendous amount of the ocean that is, that is part of the, universal database here. So
the huge collateral benefit to it, the whole project.
And I love the idea that you can do coral reefs and other natural formations as well as the man-made artifacts.
Yeah.
Amazing, I would call them sinkholes or craters, and some really unique geophysical type of formations that are a whole expedition to themselves for the Feroe. So we'll get one of the submersibles and we'll go out and find these
Count me in.
100-meter craters that blew some kind of methane gas, 10,000 years ago, and we'll go see what life has grown around them. So
what is this particular image?
this is the bow of the S-28.
Okay.
And it's amazing that most of the submarines that I've found have had some kind of bow integrity issue. The bow is separated from the S-28. The bow is separated from the Grunion. The R-12 had a bow problem reported before it was lost. Same thing with the Grayback, is damaged where the bow kind of bent off. But if you look down in the corner, there's a modern warfare. Looks like a rocket launcher off a helicopter. We were off of Hawaii here, and they were training in an area where I presume they still train today. So it's a ground for a lot of explosive ordnance and stuff that is missing. And I know Ian has worked there with you guys in Hurl, and there's nothing but different explosive ordnance.
There's a lot out there. We talked a little bit about that last week with Minister Jordan, and just
from Canada,
and then this huge global problem of unexploded ordnance and how we can start to look at cleaning it up. And that's another amazing space where the AUV could make a huge difference.
Yeah.
So we can get out there and map these areas, and maybe there's some hope that we'd be able to go back and figure out a methodology for remediation.
Yeah, and that's a big thing in Europe now, and it's growing all around the world. And AUVs are a perfect tool for that job in the littoral zones, the shallow water as well.
Yeah.
We did some work in Moray Firth in Scotland with a wind farm where they were laying a cable and they had to make sure they weren't going to blow themselves up. So.
It's really sad, but it's so true, because just the sheer amount of stuff that was just sort of chucked overboard with the thought that it would never create any kind of problem in the future, that it would just sort of go away.
It isn't
Well,
just.
you have nuclear waste off of Catalina, is that we just received?
Well, yeah, it's a DDT primarily. We have nuclear waste off the Farallon Islands.
Right, okay.
Near San Francisco.
Near
yeah.
San Francisco.
Yeah.
But
Around the world, there are places that
but
people
again, if
just don't think about, because it's out of sight, out of mind.
But if
we're
we-
on the land, it would be a much more obvious matter of concern.
yeah, then we actually
when
do
do we
something about
when
it.
do we humans tip and have wisdom and realize that the things we do today we pay for in the future, and we gotta it's education and understanding. It's
Maybe right about now, we're at a turning point, I hope, not a tipping point. Maybe tipping in the right direction.
So this is a pretty incredible image that was built, modeled here.
Looks like a movie.
Yeah, this is the same, the S-28. It's laying on its side. The gun on the right, I think it was treated with, the guys oiled it up. When guns go into water, they got a cap on the end, and I'm sure they greased them all up so they stayed. But when you zoom right into that it looks like you could pull that out and it would work today. It's an amazing shape. And you can see that to the left of that is it's the conning tower, what they call the chariot cut tower in those older submarines, and light, a little sonar down to the left, a little radar, a surface radar down the left. So, and then the teak decks, you can see all the teak decks are still there.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Huh.
And this is, I ended with National Geo on some of these pictures. This is another project we did in the Bahamas, but a shout out to Nat Geo. We've done a lot of work with those guys, and we're real proud of that. And all started with you, Sylvia. So.
Well, more to come.
More to
Tim.
come.
This is a good beginning for the
Yeah.
next phase of whatever it's going to be, but it's going to be good.
Yeah, we really think that the technology is going to help, and our systems that we're working with now, the small AUVs, are a barrier to entry. People aren't using them because they're so expensive and long lead times, and we hope to democratize that and get that in the hands of more and more people as we progress here in the future. And the more people, the same axiom from scuba diving, the more people see what's underwater, the more people will care, the more things can get done. And that's as an industry guy, as a business guy, is building a company, we feel it takes all kinds. I saw your Washington Post talk. I mean, you don't have to be a scientist to make a difference. You don't have to be a boat captain. You can be in tech and science and programmers, and you can all still make a difference on the ocean. It's not just a marine biologist or oceanographer that goes out and does this. It's a community.
Everybody, it's there. The greatest era of exploration of this planet is really just beginning. It's not 100 or 200 or 500 or 1,000 years ago. It's now. Yeah. And you're a perfect example of that, Tim. You're the real deal. It's great.
Well, we're going to move on to some questions.
Okay.
Brenda is asking, what have you learned from tracking sharks?
I have learned that there's a lot of smart guys out there that know how to track sharks. We're not afraid of them. That's what you shouldn't be afraid of them. That's the big thing. And so, I've worked with a lot of great shark apex predator experts, and their body of work, I'm proud to be, carry their water for them, do the work, help them set up, make it all happen. And I was used to say, I'm like Jay Leno or Fallon or whatever. I get to have all these great scientists on board my boat at the time. I get to help them do all their work. I get to eat dinner and breakfast, lunch, learn a tremendous amount with them for a couple, 3 weeks. And then they go, and I get a geologist this week, and we go off and we go to the Bahamas and harvest stromatolites and learn all of that.
I'm the expert.
broad base of knowledge on a lot of things, but our winning combination was always, we were part of the team. We brought tools of cameras and rebreathers and equipment and know-how and local knowledge, in Indian guide more or less, and helped them facilitate. They came with an idea and something they wanted to collect in the data, and we helped them pull it together. So your answer about sharks is sharks are probably the best indicator of a healthy reef system out there, and they're nothing to be afraid of, and you should embrace sharks. That's what I learned from all these guys.
Yeah. Just don't pull them by the tail. They don't like that at all.
They might return the favor.
It's like a dog. You don't pull them by the tail.
Yeah, exactly.
So Tim, it's no wonder you called that little ROV Otis Barton, the engineer who worked with the scientist, William Beebe. I think it's that role, it's the collaboration, it's the combination that really makes progress.
Well, DOER, Liz, your whole crew does the same thing.
Yeah.
Mom's a scientist, but you're an engineer and run a business that does amazing behind the scenes robotics. I mean, I've been in your shop, and you guys have had the polar ROVs,
Sub-ice rover.
through tubes and pop open,
Crazy
and
things.
they turn into the transformers, and they turn into another whole different vehicle, and they work under the ice and they come back. So it's amazing.
Yeah. Thank you.
You have more questions?
Yes, we do. Is there a way to explore and more to discover the diversity of life in the deep ocean? Is there some way to preserve it and reestablish it in areas?
Ooh, that's a Sylvia question, I think. So no.
Oh, I think leaving what is there intact is the best recipe at this point in time. It's, much of the ocean is still in pretty good shape, especially in the deep sea. We should be obliged not to tear up any more of it, and try, by leaving it alone, the natural processes are the best way to restore a healthy system. I don't know yet whether there's a way to seed an area that's been already destroyed. Well, actually, there are efforts to put corals, to grow corals and try to put them back, like planting a tree where forest has been clear cut, where coral reef has been destroyed, to plant corals that have been raised in the lab or raised in the ocean and then transplanted. But it's really hard, because just as a tree is not a forest is all kinds of stuff, and a coral reef is not just the coral. It's so much that we don't almost know where to begin, but you can start with structures, whether in terms of replacing where manganese nodules have been disrupted or destroyed. Can we replant some of these, like a starter mix? We better be prepared to wait thousands or even millions of years
To find out if it works.
to see them recover. It takes that long for them to grow. It takes that long for a healthy forest to grow too. I mean, to replace what constitutes a fully intact system, the microbes in the soil, the birds, all of the elements that make a forest.
It's very true. I think
The highest priority is protect what remains, and don't let more destruction take place.
Yeah, and we've seen, E.O. Wilson is after everybody to protect half the earth, and you're all about half the ocean, or at least half the ocean, maybe more.
Don't destroy what's still working.
Yeah, and there's a lot, we've talked a lot on some of the earlier shows about protection for the high seas as being a real priority,
Right.
and what people can do to give the UN some little nudge to
Big nudge.
a shove to do more.
Right, they belong to all of us. Right?
Yeah,
Right.
and it would probably really help in terms of preserving some of these wreck sites as well, because they are, they're marine graves, as you point out. Their lives have been lost there, and it's important to protect those areas.
Sacred ground.
It is sacred ground, and it's really worth preserving it from trawling or even wind
Pipelines.
farms, pipelines.
One of the things I've learned over all the different scientists that I've worked with is that just what you're saying is, if you let Mother Nature alone, she will heal herself. And we're not talking about we're going to go back to the way it was. That's gone. we have to go forward, but Mother Nature always figures out a way to heal it if we would just back off and give it some space. And that's where we have to figure that out. We're not trying to take everybody back to the Stone Ages and
No.
trying to move forward, be good stewards, and then keep the planet livable for us, because the planet will go along way after us. We may not. And so we need to be, I hate to say it, we need to be selfish. Being selfish means protecting the environment and biodiversity and oceans and land and being good stewards, have some wisdom.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Safeguard the system that keeps us alive. Life support, you know that when you're out there diving. Life support, life support.
Yeah, it's key
Your
to
air.
whether you're in a submersible, in a rebreather, or in your
Up in the
car, wherever you are.
Bigger than the oceans now. It's carbon, it's climate change, and it's all part of it. And you know, overfishing and we've seen it all in our lifetime. It's got to stop, and we got
All
to
witnesses.
about face it. So we got to what is it? Flatten the curve.
Yeah. Joseph is asking, do you know when you might be able to dive on the USS Harder S-257, lost in 1944?
Yes,
My brother was aboard.
I understand, and we get a lot of that, and we don't. I don't want to get people's hopes up, so we do not tell people where we're going, when we're going. I said this earlier in the show. We have a host of. I know what the Harder is. We've got a database on her. Every one of the 52. We've collected a lot of data on them. We got them on our radar. We encourage others to go look for them. There's been a couple found by other people. We're not the only ones out there. We're focusing on deeper stuff. But as I said earlier, we do not announce where we're looking. We only announce what we find for a lot of reasons, because sometimes we're not done looking, and sometimes we just don't want to disappoint people and get hopes up before that. And it's just easier that way. As time progresses, we may start releasing some of our the searches we've done and haven't found in areas, but you know, that'll be, we'll publish a book, or we'll do something of that nature.
Yeah, that's important. And I think people don't sometimes understand like the process that's required and just getting permission sometimes to operate equipment in various bodies of water within a EEZ, or if it's not in the high seas, and it takes a lot of time to get all the correct permissions and
State
sensitivities.
Department, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Customs, equipment, you know, it's
all kinds of fun and games.
it's like shooting a movie, but no ticket sales at the end. So.
No.
And then comes the hurricane.
Yeah, and then comes or typhoon.
I'm at is typhoons. So
Typhoons,
we spent a lot of time running from typhoons in 2018. So
yeah.
A lot of them kept us out of some sites that we wanted to go to up north in Japan.
So let's see, William is asking about another one of the wrecks, the bonefish. And he just wanted to know, is there any way that how others could be of assistance to you? How he and others could be of assistance?
We have our nonprofit. We take donations to do outreach in some of our project or underway projects. That's always good. Stay tuned with us. Sign up to our newsletter and just keep abreast. We want to try to aggregate people that are interested in this. So when we do find stuff, we'll keep them informed. And this is the best way to do that is through our media and press, where we get some coverage on this. The award helped us do that. We got some good coverage with Lester Holt, and we got a lot of people, families that know about us. And I think that's the key. And the families of the 3,505 people that went missing in World War II submarines are like they're a group of people that all have something in common, and it transcends generations. Sometimes it's these guys were young in the sub. Not all of them had children, but they have nieces and nephews and they have family that lived on, and they were always missing. They were always missing in action, not gone. So someday missing means you can find them, right? So and that's kind of what we're doing. And these images and where these men are, it really helps add closure for a lot of these families. And I don't want to sound cliche about that, but it's important. And on the ocean education side, the more people realize that it's just not this big blue mass of nothingness out there. Even our finds and our history down there is important. And the technology that's helping bring it out there. The more people are interested in the technology, the more we can advance that technology into sciences and get it in the hands of smaller scientists, coastal engineering scientists, people that have, they don't have to be some giant NOAA expedition. It can be out, doing a survey off the coast here in Long Island or something. So
right, exactly. Heather's asking us about the S-28, and thanking you for finding her. But she's just wondering, she keeps hearing that specific wreck has been considered of particular significance in the press. Was there any reason for that?
There was an article by, I think I want to say Outside Magazine or something, where they were doing the 10 most mysterious wrecks in the United States, and I think S-28 was there, because S-28 just disappeared. It was out on training with crew off of Hawaii, and they just never heard from them again. And went looking for them, maybe an oil slick, but it was like the technology back then, there was no going and looking for them. We found one off of Panama that was only in 300 feet of water, and the technology back then didn't exist. They were alive. 26 men were in there, sent up a buoy. They were alive in the center of the ship. Nobody could get to them. That's 300 feet.
Oh.
The R-12, when it was lost off of Key West, when we found that, the history, they went looking for that by dragging chains and hooks to try to see if it was down there. There was no ROVs, there was no AUVs, mixed gas divers. Today, if they were alive in that, like in Panama, we could have rescued them. So it's a big tech change.
That's an important step, and all this technology that we have coming along and the investment in it, it can make an enormous difference in situations like that.
It's a game changer for the way what we can do with the oceans now with a small bunch of people. Before, when the work I did in the Blake's Plateau, when we first pioneered that AUV in 2007 to 2011, I think, it would have taken a 250-foot ship and 50 guys. I did it with 8 guys in a 65-foot boat. Okay, 200 miles offshore. All right, we were the robots were doing the work, and we were tending to them and running shifts and making sure they were charged and programmed and dropped back in the water. And that is the new paradigm for robotics. It's drones underwater.
It's just like we do it at DOER. We have to be lean and adaptive and just figure things out as we go along.
Yeah.
So Matthew is asking, he said, thanking you for the presentation. He's wondering if you could speak about 4D modeling for investigation of other kinds of shipwrecks, and particularly any munition dumps.
Oh, yeah, 4D modeling is just starting to catch on, but it's a big, heavy lift. A lot of manpower, not a lot of manpower post-processing, a lot of programming. We are hoping to help enhance that and develop software that can, with machine learning and artificial intelligence, do a lot of the work for us. But yes, it can be done. That's the future. Sending an autonomous vehicle down there to film and scan it like an MRI, or like in this case visual, and then bring it back and have the software automatically stitch it together and map it. That's in the future, but not too far in the future.
Yeah, and hopefully it'll just become, as you say, more affordable, more common, and kind of drive down the price.
Yes.
So Ron is asking about the Escalar, and he wants to know, do you think any efforts will be come to try to find her again? Yeah,
I know Ron, and maybe Ron and I can communicate offline. But yes, we've talked in the past, and Escalar is still being looked for. Let's put it that way. Okay.
Yeah, and we've and as you say, it's just such a arduous task to get the permits, get all the data that you really need to go out and be very on target, if you will, with the search, because it is still very expensive to mount this effort.
Some of these sites have 3 possible places they could be, because the reporting from World War II is like, we think it might have gone here or here or here, and they could be 70, 100, 200 miles apart, and in different waters. I mean, it's we're working to see Japan. We got South Korea and Japan. You know, depending on where we are in the channel, it depends on what country we're in. So,
and then Matt is asking if COVID. He assumes that COVID affected your search efforts, and he wants to know when you might resume expeditions.
Well, we're still working on research, never ends, and outreach, but we're planning on getting underway in 2022. That's our next. And you got to plan this around seasons, and we're starting to get into typhoon season, and we made the mistake. We're going to make the mistake. We chose we took a boat that was available to us in 2018, and we spent a lot of time with running from typhoons.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be the case whether you're diving submersibles or AUVs or RVs. You know, the best time of year to be out there typically is, you know, hurricane and typhoon season.
Yeah, I know.
It's just like
Take the
it's your
chance.
thing, right? But
Yeah.
we found that during sustainable seas, we found
It's
that during
perverse.
it's
Yeah.
very perverse. You can have beautiful, flat, calm water for your dives, and then
Boom.
boom, you know.
Yeah.
So
And running from it, I know.
you're running from it, and it never fails.
Yeah. So when we're going to underway in the latter part of August, September, November, that's when it gets really up there. So
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah, and we have a few more questions about specific wrecks, but I'll let you take those offline
Right.
and send you the questions so that you can get back to people and let them know.
drop us an email I think it's info@oceanoutreach.org, and that's on the Lost 52 website as well. And we'll get you something back as best we can. Again, just keep in mind, we have a policy that we would rather not disappoint people, you know, and tell them that we're looking and not find. That's hard to.
Yeah, it is. It's one of the hardest things about trying to do, you know, search and recovery.
Mhm.
But because it is very human, there's so much emotion attached to it. But it's such valuable work.
You know, just one observation that we get asked a lot, and you probably do too, Tim, about what can I do? I'm just one person. And I look at you, you're just one person, right?
More or less, I have one person, but I got a bunch of good people around me. So
Yeah, well, that's you've tapped into allies, collaborators,
Mm.
those who complement you.
Yeah.
But you have really developed something and created around you something of the sort that much larger institutions accomplish. Like,
Yeah.
you know, Woods Hole finds really cool stuff out there, and they've got this massive institution behind them, Scripps institution, in other countries too, navies, for example. But one individual taking the technology and working to develop appropriate technology at this point in time, you're really making a difference.
Sure.
And so any little kid who says, I'm just one little kid, what can I do?
You got a dream. So
Yeah.
and not be afraid
Don't
to go out. And,
Go after it.
Don't think that you instead of thinking what you can't do, think of what you can do. And get on with it. And one step at a time, one accomplishment at a time, and you can look back over years. You can look back now, Tim, almost over decades of,
yeah,
I didn't know this then, and now then you just patch things together one step at a time, and you're really making a difference.
appreciate that. It's nice to
More
hear.
to come.
And you look back on a body of work, and it does kind of piece together from the rearview mirror. But when you're doing it, you just got to have a passion for it and care, and then
Yeah.
I get involved, and then it leads from one place to the next. I mean, when we met, I had a dive shop and was in the Keys, I think, and we were always interested in the environment and whatnot. And then we branched off into expedition and research and expedition work. So it never looked back.
Yeah, and you know, and I think that two of the biggest elements we need to keep in mind too are just the enormous you know, empathy that you've had for not just for the environment but for the families of the people,
Right.
and the, you know, the kindness factor. It never
Mhm.
goes out of style. We have one final question from Andy. Andy T. Do you have a favorite conservation project, or is it yet to come?
It's a good question. I mean, I don't know if I have an answer for that. I have the oceans are near and dear, and if I'm looking, I mean, I've always been a coral reef conservationist because I watched the Florida Keys reef system like for 20 something years or more every day out there, like an old friend who was sick and dying,
Yeah.
and people trying to save it and deal with it. So but it is simple. It's a hard one to say. It's what I saw in the Keys is happening everywhere in the world. That's what I've learned as I've stepped back and I'm now working around the world. It's a microcosm for that. So we need to outreach. That's probably it. Ocean Outreach is our company that we named it that for a reason, our nonprofit, and we get out there and we try to let people know what's going on, and I think the more voices in that choir, the better.
Yeah.
And we just got to get critical mass, and that's Ocean Outreach, but planet outreach. Climate change is now part of all of our vernacular. So
Yeah, it's more like climate chaos at this point. So, but that's kind of all of our questions, and just wanted to say we're so grateful for your time and joining us today.
All right.
Yeah, and
It's good. A lot of fun.
And before we close, we'd also like to say thank you to our guests and our producer, Ocean Elders, and to everyone out there in the community who continues to show up and participate for these conversations. Dive In feels like home to us, and I hope it feels that way to you. Water connects us all, and we're very grateful to everyone. Sylvia is going to be headed out to help launch a brand new Hope Spot in early July, but we're going to be coming back in later July, around July 22nd, with Dr. Amanda Vincent. We're going to be talking about one of my favorite fishes, seahorses.
She likes horses.
I do.
The big four-legged type. She's got 3 of them, actually.
Yeah.
Rescue horses.
Rescues. So, but until then, remember, take care of the ocean.
As if your life depends on it, because
It
does.
it does.
It does. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
We'll
you.
see you next time.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.